Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from Vanilla Races Expanded Phytokin. For starters, you'll need to own the Biotech DLC to make use of the Vanilla Races Expanded content, as well as the workshop content, Vanilla Expanded Framework, and Harmony. This mod is highly reactive to how much official DLC you own. With only Biotech, you will have one of the three included races. Royalty adds the second, Ideology the third. So as that required content list kinda gave away, you're looking at 3 new races, all similar in their basic function with a speciality focus. This mod also includes the supporting plants and animals for the new abilities. Right, 3 new xenotypes. You have the Gowranlan-kin, which require Ideology, Animakin, which require Royalty, and Pollux-kin, which I'd say require Biotech, but you wouldn't be able to use any of this stuff without it, so...
Not really relevant then, is it?
First off, the shared genes between these 3. Excluding a single change, all 3 of these races have the same base to work from. Skill-wise, they're amazing with plants, whilst being terrible with both ranged and melee combat, dealing reduced melee damage too. This means even though they'll be a terrible shot, they still have the potential to do more ranged damage than they do melee. All of the tree folk come with a high level of psychic sensitivity by default, and have a new gene called Progressive Attunement, which increases sensitivity by 1% each year, no cap. This gene can be combined with your own xenotype that is deathless and non-senescent, meaning they'll never suffer age-related illnesses and potentially reach boosts in the hundreds of percentages for psycasting. The various kin xenotypes are also always female, with the Anima and Gao versions being beautiful, which is the only deviation in the xenotypes. Pollux swaps out beauty for tox immunity to keep all 3 races around the same level of metabolic efficiency. As they're living trees, all of them are understandably terrified of fire, and will potentially flee at the sight of it. This is especially dangerous as they all have slow wound healing. The last thing you want in a fight is a mental break and pawns uncontrollably fleeing into potentially more enemies. They are a little safer than a standard pawn, however. They have sap blood that slows bleed out speed, and bark skin, which provides a huge natural boost to blunt protection. The bark skin bonus only costs -1 metabolic efficiency. It's crazy. It has 0 downside and grants a 35% additional armor against the hardest vanilla damage type to defend against. Stellar bonus. Put it on everyone you can. All of the treekin are given the green thumb gene, increasing their mood up to +20 for sowing plants. As this buff lasts 24 hours, if you want to make the most of it, simply change a large flower garden every day to a new bloom. Not only will you have a happy colony, you'll have an aesthetically pleasing one too. The last few small bits before the heavy hitters are all cosmetic additions. Foliage hairstyles with unique colours for each type of tree that remain greyless for maximum style, and it's definitely worth mentioning that all of the plants are very sleepy. Unless you structure their schedule to include a nap time, you'll likely find them out of sync with the rest of the colony. There's something about flying a kite at night that's so unwholesome.
Hello, mother dear.
The big genes then. All Phytokin have 2 in common. Photosynthesis is a nightmare to say without a lisp. It completely stops hunger drain for the pawn when standing in sunlight. This can either be naturally, outdoors, or inside with a sun lamp, which is obviously a far more expensive and excessive way of activating this bonus. This is why you want your Phytokin scheduled carefully. They already have a good metabolism. Being able to keep them outdoors for the entire duration of sunup means you can squeeze them down to less than 1 meal a day of food requirement. Although chances are to keep them outside for so long, you're drowning in veggies anyway. Don't forget that an insane surplus of food is only bringing in bigger raids, especially if you're stacking hundreds of meals in the freezer. Share the wealth. Slap those meals into a pod and fling them to the nearest faction you'd like to be friends with. The other major gene that they all share is sapling birth, which are commonly called cabbages on the mod page. Rather than carrying a child to term, because bark skin isn't really made to stretch, Phytokin plant their children. Now, this is just as dangerous as it sounds. They're fragile, they can be struck by lightning, can be accidentally removed if you drag certain orders or zones over them, yes, speaking from experience, so you want to treat these very carefully and build a greenhouse around them if possible. It takes seriously bad weather to cause a sapling to die, but it can still happen. so if you're in extreme cold or heat, you may want to consider temperature regulation too. Once a sapling reaches maturity, it'll pop out a new teeny tiny Phytokin to tend. This is probably one of the jankier ways of raising children. As this method is a little unreliable, you can't advance progress via dev mode, nor can you inspect the child's genes during development. It's a neat mechanic, but you'll likely have odd outcomes if the Phytokin are having children with another xenotype. Now comes the major deviation for all of the races. Let's start with the Gurren Lagann. They work best with the Gundam trees, having 100% bonus to their prune speed, which makes achieving that 100% connection a breeze. They're easily capable of maintaining 2 trees to perfection by themselves. If involved in another pawn's connection ritual to a Code Geass tree, they will enhance the outcome a further 10%, providing a bigger initial boost to the connection percentage. They are also capable of summoning 2 companion dryads, which are large helper creatures that do a little bit of everything all of the time. Cleaning, hauling, caravanning, they can even be drafted to fight. Just make sure if you're going to summon them, you have an animal handler with at least 5 skill, otherwise you won't be able to keep them trained forever. There is always the darker option for these two. If you're in a really bad spot and find your colony starving, these guys have a huge amount of meat, and, well, you can summon them again after a 15-day cooldown. Just saying. The Animakin are next, and as their name would suggest, they have an affinity for the anima tree. They buff the growth rate of anima grass during meditation, and if included in the anima linking ceremony, improve the outcome to spawn more grass upon completion. Their ability is a little more straightforward than the Gurren Lagann, having the anima song ability. This is essentially a psychic soothe on demand with a 15-day cooldown, granting a mood buff to all colonists, with higher psychic sensitivity giving a bigger buff. The Polluxkin is last, and they're a little more involved, only a bit though. They have a need for waste packs, which allows them to eat trash to negate a mood debuff. However, they don't get a buff for having the need fulfilled. It's more of a ticking clock that allows them to slowly Pac-Man through your waste pack supply. If any waste packs have exploded on your tile, or if you've been using pollution generators, they have an ability to fix that too, planting a Pollux bush, which is a smaller version of the insanely rare Pollux tree. This bush has a small radius, 7x7 minus corners, and periodically absorbs any pollution from the tiles around itself. Every one of your Polluxkin on the map adds to this radius, so with 2 Polluxkin the radius is now 11x11, again minusing the rounded corners. There's a bit of an issue that this may cause. Pollux bushes are annoyed by any nearby structures, so if you've carefully planted them around toxifier generators to deal with the output, adding another Polluxkin into your colony will expand the radius, annoy them, and break the setup. You can fix this by sending a Polluxkin off map to go caravanning for a while, as the game is only counting the Pollux affinity genes located on the tile with the bush. This does mean that if you send all of your Polluxkin away, the zone shrinks to a 3x3, and does practically nothing. So there's a bit of a fun juggling game here. And that, as they say, is that. I've got a lot of love for the Phytokin races. You're usually offered one within the first year in a quest, similar to how you save a royal for your first bit of honour. It's always fun to see which one of the potential 3 you roll, especially fun on a tribal start, as this can actually end up changing the direction of your colony, from psycasting, tree worship, or maybe even pollution power. This is definitely one of the more price-gated mods to use though, as you do get the most out of it by owning all of the official DLC, which I get for some players is a luxury. Still, even if you only own biotech, Polluxkin are still pretty cool. Thanks for watching folks. If you have any mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for, or suggestions of mods you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.